Hello everyone and welcome. In today's video, we're going to talk about how to make a simple, realistic tactic in Football Manager, and then what to look for when watching a match to see if it's working. Let's get started by talking about tactics. In Football Manager, whenever you play a match, your players are going to try and do two things: score a goal and stop the opponent from scoring a goal. Your formation, player roles, and team instructions work together with the player's attributes to determine how effective or ineffective you are at achieving those two things. And it's important to note that when making your tactic, the formation you choose is your team's defensive shape. As a quick example, this is the 4-2-3-1 formation I used with Bayer Leverkusen in my last video, which means that this 4-2-3-1 is how we will line up defensively. The player roles I choose tells them how I want to attack. Some formations are naturally defensive, just like some formations are naturally attacking. A 3-5-2 is more of a defensive formation because we have 8 outfield players at the halfway line or below. This setup makes it easier to play defense because we naturally have more players back. But a more defensive formation means you'll need more players going forward in attack to compensate and pose a real threat. On the other hand, a 4-2-4 is an attacking formation because we have 6 players at the halfway line or above as their starting position. This makes it easier to attack since those players are already in the opponent's half as their starting position. But like the other one, since we have more players in attack, then we need other players providing defense and supporting cover with their player roles. And player roles can also help dictate your play style. A role like the deep line playmaker is great for keeping possession. A pressing forward excels at closing down the opponent to win you the ball back. And wingers love to cross the ball for counterattacks. So your formation and player roles that you choose have a huge impact on how you want to play. And for team instructions, I always do those last. The reason being is that I want to make sure my formation and player roles are working together to achieve the play style that I want. And I'll go into this a little more later in the video on how to apply team instructions once you have your formation down. Now that we have some basics down, let's start with our team for today's example, Luton Town in the English Premier League. I chose Luton Town for 2 reasons. The first is that our expectation is to be relegated, so it'll be a good challenge to try and win a match. And the other is that I'm not terribly familiar with their team, so I can show you my process on how I find my tactic and play style. So the first thing you want to do is evaluate your team and see who your good players are. There are a ton of great resources on this. I do want to show you my way because it's a little different and I guess a simplistic, holistic approach to Football Manager. But all I do is go through the squad and make notes to myself about players and possible formation ideas. That's it. These are literally some of the notes I took on the Luton squad. My initial plan is to sit back and try to get the ball to Ross Barkley, who's our best player. He can use his passing skills to hit the ball up to our excellent target forward. I do the squad review this way because it's a good way to find out a lot about your players. For example, Ross Barkley is a natural in 2 midfield spots and is also accomplished as an attacking midfielder. This means I know I can play him anywhere in the midfield if I need to make changes during the match. On the other hand, a player like Adebayo can only play as a striker, and he has low passing and vision, meaning the striker roles that focus on technical skills, like the deep lying forward or false 9, may not be for him, but he'd be excellent in a more focused role, like a target forward. And there's not some secret answer you're trying to find when looking through the players that will unlock and make you win every single match. All I'm doing when reviewing the squad is seeing what players we have, what positions they can play, and possible formation ideas. So after looking through the squad, I settled on this formation: a 4-4-1-1 with 2 defensive midfielders. Our formation is defensive because we're a relegation candidate, and our player roles favor a counter-attacking style because that's the best way I think we can score. Then I filled in the squad with who I think is the best fit for each player role. We have 8 outfield players at the halfway line or below, and with our target forward and shadow striker up front, along with our excellent wingers, we have player roles that are great for that counter-attack. And Barkley, being our best player, has free reign to be a playmaker in the regista role. When choosing your player role duties like defend, support, or attack, there is no rule on how many you need. But a good starting point for a tactic is 2 to 3 players on attack, 3 on defend, and the rest on support. And the last part of the tactic is that I am using fullbacks even though Luton actually has pretty good wingbacks. I chose to do this because we're going to be underdogs in most matches, and a wingback for me is too aggressive, so I prefer a fullback who will be playing safer. This type of situation is up to you as a manager to decide. Do you want to use your players in their natural position but sacrifice your tactic? Or do you choose the player roles that would benefit the tactic but sacrifice what the player's favored role is? And like I say in my other videos, there is no right or wrong answer to this. It's just how you want to play as a manager. There are also no team instructions or player instructions on this tactic yet. I want to see how they play out together, and then I will add those in later. And now for our first match, a tough away game at Brighton. I always recommend when trying a new tactic is to watch the match in full, even if you have to boost up the game speed in the settings. The reason for this is you want to see what your tactic is doing in the play-to-play, because sometimes on like comprehensive highlights or something, there'll be 10-minute stretches where nothing is happening or no highlights are being shown, but something is happening in your tactic and you want to see why you're not getting any highlights. For this, I'm not going to show the full 90 minutes or anything. I'll just show you some of the key highlights that I had in my notes from watching the full match. Literally right from the kickoff, I noticed our defensive backline is too high, even on the standard defensive line. Being a relegation candidate, our defenders probably aren't up to the quality to keep up with some of the attacking players in the Premier League. And sure enough, only a minute into the match, Brighton gets an excellent chance by getting past our backline. I try to wait at least 20 to 30 minutes of in-match time before making any changes, because you don't know if that was just a fluke or maybe an underlying issue. So I make a note to lower the defensive line whenever I make those tactical changes. In the 13th minute, Brighton won a free kick, but it actually led to something else, our first goal. Our shadow striker gets the deflection and passes to our winger, who takes it wide. The shadow striker is a role that wants to get in front of goal, so that's where he goes to get on the end of the cross. And then a few minutes later, we had another chance. My shadow striker receives a pass, gets to the penalty box and hands it off to the winger, who hits a cross to our target forward. Remember, I don't have any team instructions on. I'm not telling them to play on the counter or to hit in early crosses. They are playing this way because of the formation I use and the player roles I chose that favor this play style. A winger that sits deep in a 4-4-1-1 will like to cross, and I have players up front who like to get crosses. Right before the half, Brighton got an incredible chance. When they've got the ball, look at my left back and how wide he is. I'd like to make a profound tactical observation on this, but honestly, the other team is trying to score too, and you're gonna give up chances over the course of 90 minutes. All you can do is hope your goalie makes a save or maybe a defender makes a block. At halftime, I made some tactical changes. We had an injury late in the first half that forced a substitution, and I changed from a 4-4-1-1 to a 4-1-4-1. I swapped the shadow striker for another central midfielder. Around the 60th minute, Brighton finally scored. It was from a throw-in and a great shot, and sometimes you just get beat by the opponent. My final changes were moving Barkley to a central midfielder, hoping to get him more involved as he wasn't able to do much as a playmaker from the defensive midfield. And then I lowered our defensive line and told the players not to press as much, so they won't get pulled out of position and we can keep our defensive shape. In the 86th minute, we have the ball deep in our half and our center back boots it up the field where our target forward wins the header. Our winger makes an amazing run and uses the target forward to link it to the winger on the other side. He makes his own incredible play and we score the goal. But in the 94th minute, right at the end of the game, Brighton got one final chance. The game ends and we win 2-1. Here are the match stats if you are curious. Did we get lucky? Probably. Brighton had a lot of great chances that they either missed or our goalie saved. But I like to think we earned our victory. we did enough to win the game and create enough quality scoring chances. And that's all you can do when making a tactic, is are you putting your team in a position to succeed and seeing if you win or lose. Other than that, there's not much more you can do. And for the record, there was no trickery in this video or save scumming to get the result I wanted. All I did was fire up a new save, choose Luton Town, review the squad, and played a match. I watched the full 90 minutes and then made some notes and went over the highlights with you guys. So now that we finished our first match, we can go on to the next steps on changes to make. For the next steps, you want to think about stuff you liked and stuff you didn't like from the match. For me, I loved our counter-attacking style. We were deadly on it and scored twice from it. The thing I didn't like is that our best player wasn't really involved in the match. So for changes, I can go to team instructions and select counter because we are very good on the counter, and maybe even more direct passing to accentuate that counter-attacking style. And for the things I didn't like, I switched to the 4-1-4-1 formation, but put Ross Barkley as a central midfielder on attack. Now he's going to be involved in those counterattacks rather than sitting back in the defensive midfield. This is how I use team instructions. Find out what we're good at, and then use team instructions to accentuate that playstyle. And then you just keep revising your tactic until you find out what's perfect for you. And my final point on this video is that this approach will not dominate your league. You're not going to win every match 5-0, you're not going to have insane stats and crazy goal amounts. In fact, I promise you're going to lose some games if you build a tactic like this. But the point is that you are learning about your team, what they are good at and what they are not good at, and hopefully, though it may be a little more difficult, it's a much more satisfying way to build a tactic because you know when it does work, it's because of all the work you put into it. So anyway, let me know in the comments if you like this style video. It's something different. I know it's not really a player role, but I have some other ideas. So if you like it, I'll do other videos like this in the future. Anyway, that is it for today's video. Thank you for watching.